So you're a student pilot and you take off on your big cross-country flight. You're halfway to your destination. Turns into low IFR. All of a sudden, I've got a decision to make, a real aeronautical decision-making process. Here it is. I am the pilot in command. As a student pilot, you got a big checklist of all these different things you got to do. One thing you have to execute is a cross-country solo flight, 3 destinations. I had mine all planned and ready to go. The forecast is looking good, and well, I take off and I'm flying up to Pocatello, Idaho. I had 2 goals on this flight. One was to get my 150-mile cross-country flight taken care of. The other was to get 3 towered landings at this airport in Pocatello. So I did my briefing. I had everything set up, ready to go. We're all set. And so I get about halfway to my first destination. I've got a little downtime up there in the plane. And if you're not constantly doing something in the plane while you're flying, you're doing something wrong. So I start asking myself, what can I do to stay ahead right now? And I think, well, I'm definitely out of range to get ATIS, so I can't get the weather report from the airport over the radio, but maybe I can check the weather, right here while I'm flying. So first thing I do is just pull up the METAR on my phone right there in ForeFlight. I pull up the airport. It's showing low IFR. Now, low IFR, that means the clouds are 500 feet above the ground. Visibility is less than a mile. This is like the worst conditions you can fly an airplane in. And as a student pilot, it would be illegal to find yourself flying in those conditions. So this is like, I don't really understand. How could it be low IFR? I just took off 45 minutes ago. The forecast was clear the whole day. And I'm flying like, I don't know, it's maybe scattered at 12,000, but it's pretty clear. It's pretty sunny. Conditions are good. I don't understand what could be going on here. We're in a high pressure system. Where did this weather come from? I'm literally, double checking the METAR. Like, is something wrong here? What is going on? Anyways, it's a little bit intense. I'm in the plane by myself. I'm flying solo. I don't have a pilot's license. I have like a learner's permit. You know what I mean? I'm a student pilot, and my instructor has endorsed me to go execute this flight solo by myself. But I've only flown a plane a couple times by myself. Okay, and so all of a sudden, I've got a decision to make, a real aeronautical decision-making process. Here it is. I am the pilot in command. And so this feels a little bit intense. I mean, it was intense enough taking off to do my 150-mile cross country, and so to encounter this weather situation in the middle of the flight, like, what the hell? So what are my options? I can definitely turn around and go back to my home airport. That would be totally fine. I've got plenty of fuel to do that. But there is this temptation. It's like, what if there was just like a temporary fog that came in up at Pocatello, and it's going to be clear by the time I get up there? You know what I mean? Should I just continue on my flight and see if it clears up? Or what if I just keep flying until I encounter the bad weather, turn around and come back? I really am trying to get this flight done. Like, this is a checklist item I need to accomplish. I got to do it at some point. And obviously, I don't want to fly into bad weather. I'm not going to compromise myself or my safety or my airplane. But I'm just in disbelief. Like, how? There's no way the weather is that bad. It was not forecasted. And so this is kind of tough, you know? But I noticed those hazardous mindsets, you know, kind of creeping in. And I did recognize, you know, kind of a worst case scenario if I do fly up there and my plan is to turn around if it's bad and come back. What if I turn around and I'm kind of socked in and the weather started to surround me? All of a sudden I'm dealing with IMC conditions. Yeah, that would be an incredible display of irresponsibility. And so even though there's this temptation to head up there and see if it's going to work out, I know I can't do that. I know I can't do that. And so is it like, do I just turn around and go back home, call it a day? But then I kind of think like there could be a third option. So I know I can't accomplish one of my goals, which was to go to Pocatello and do towered landings. But my other goal was a 150-mile trip to 3 airports. Well, I think I can divert to Malad, hit BMC on the way back, and I still get my cross country flight done. Can I do that? And so I'm thinking through like how do I actually do that? I got to check the weather there. That should be fine. I mean, I'm real close to Malad as it is. I can probably just about visually see it, and so the weather should be fine, but let's confirm. I get the weather. Yeah, it is as expected, and so now I have to talk to ATC, I guess. I've got ATC flight following en route to Pocatello. And so I need to tell them I'm diverting to Malad, I guess. I've never done that before. I know how it works in theory, but I've never done it. And I've got a lot going on, you know. I'm flying an airplane, which is a serious cognitive load in itself. And now figuring out how to execute a diversion, it's like getting a little bit exciting. So I go ahead and call ATC, give them my intentions, and they respond as expected and read off the NOTAMs, and I'm on my way. So plot a course, and I'm on my way. Pretty easy and reasonable to just use pilotage to get to my destination here. Eventually, I switch over to local frequency and start looking for the airport. Now, I've never been to this airport before. I've never seen it. I don't actually, I'm kind of having a hard time identifying it on the ground. And so this was a learning moment for me, and one learning moment for me in this flight. If you are 5 miles from the airport on the map, you're basically right over top of it. For some reason, I thought it was like off in the distance, like, where's this airport, you know? And then all of a sudden, I kind of like, oh my gosh, it's right there. So I was coming in a little wonky, and there's no other planes on ADSB. I don't hear any other planes on the radio. I had been communicating location updates on the radio, and so I feel comfortable about other traffic in the airspace, but I'm definitely not in optimal position. So anyways, my approach is not stable. I can't get it together. I have to execute a go around. Fly the pattern. I'm definitely in position for the second approach, and I make a nice landing and do a full stop taxi back. As I'm taxiing down, there's a couple of good old boys standing on the ramp next to an airplane, Carhartts and cowboy hats, hands in their pockets. We're out in the middle of nowhere. It's like the only hangars are pole barns, and the FBO is an old country ranch home or something. It's like we're out in the country, it feels like. And I was embarrassed from having done this like wonky go around or whatever. And so it's funny taxiing by, those guys wave. Hey, gentlemen, just checking out the airport. You have a good one. Anyways, as I'm on the ground there, I kind of brief the rest of my flight, make sure I'm good to go. Fuel's looking good, and so I take off and hit BMC on the way home and get back to the airport. That flight turned into a real adventure. And it's a great story looking back on it. I learned so much during that flight. It almost felt like a bonus lesson in my PPL training. You know what I mean? Because practicing a real diversion when you encounter unexpected IMC is not something that's asked of student pilots, but it is something that I got to encounter firsthand and deal with all on my own. And so I really kind of felt like a PIC at this point. And even though there were a few hiccups in the process, ultimately it was a confidence boosting experience and made for a great story to tell my friends when I got done with. Another big takeaway, I learned that the forecast is not the truth. Just because it might be forecasted clear or whatever, that's not a guarantee. And so that was another nice learning moment to discover you can't put your trust in the forecast. You need to be ready and expecting a change of events. So just kind of a fun story from the training process. Wanted to record and share. If you watched and you liked it, thank you. I appreciate it. I'll be back next week with another update or story for my training process. We'll see you.